In 2022, Latvia has competed with Estonia for the country which dedicates the greatest share of its budget to Ukraine's military support.
Latvia tore down all of its Soviet monuments, and the influence of Russian language in Latvian daily life rapidly declined.
Hello and welcome to Ukraine in Flames, a special project by Ukraine Media Center and NGO Euro-Atlantic Course, and I'm your host, Miroslava Yaremkiv. Latvia is one of our closest allies in this war. I find that countries that felt Russian aggression on themselves are the ones that understand and support Ukraine the most. The Soviet regime occupied Latvia twice, in 1940 and 1944 respectively. 35,000 of Latvians were killed or deported during the Soviet occupation between those years. For the country that has less than 2 million people, those are huge numbers. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how Latvian society changed throughout this year in the prism of Russian-Ukrainian war, which hit really close to home for Latvians and amplified their support and assistance to Ukraine. If you want to learn more about this subject, please continue watching this video and subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss our videos in the future. Latvia's support to Ukraine has exceeded 1% of the country's GDP over the past year. Economic and military aid provided by Latvia to Ukraine and Ukrainians has been proportionally one of the largest. We're extremely grateful to have such a loyal and supporting ally. Marija Golubeva, fellow at Robert Bosch Academy in Berlin and former Minister of Interior of Latvia, will share a statement about Latvian ongoing assistance to Ukraine and significant civil society involvement.
Latvia actively supports Ukraine's defense capabilities in its war against the aggressor. In 2022, Latvia has competed with Estonia for the country which dedicates the greatest share of its budget to Ukraine's military support. Of course, big countries like the US and Germany give more in absolute numbers, but we give the most in terms of the share of our GDP and our budget. Also, our civil society has been extremely engaged in supporting Ukraine's army. Private persons have organized convoys of four-wheel drive cars to Ukraine in order to support the Ukrainians fighting with the aggressor on their soil. Also, Latvian civil society has given very warm welcome to Ukrainian refugees, and the government has developed policies supporting Ukrainian refugees. At some points, we had about 40,000 people from Ukraine fleeing the war, living temporarily in Latvia, and many of them are in Latvia right now. War of aggression waged by the Russian Federation in Ukraine has made Latvian society more alert. Finally, the propaganda channels of Russian TV were forbidden to broadcast in Latvia. And we can see the results. Between March and May 2022, the percentage of people in Latvia who support Putin and Russia in this unjust war has decreased, and the percentage of those who have been doubting has also decreased. More people have started to support Ukraine. So the absence of propaganda has had its positive effect. Speaking of Latvia's defense policies, of course, also since the beginning of the war, we have been much more specific about the ways in which the country can be defended in case of aggression. And the investment in defense has increased very much. And I think it will continue to increase, which is justified in the current situation. Together with other Baltic states, we have been also committed to promoting the cause of military aid to Ukraine everywhere in the West. And Latvian diplomats and Latvian civil society have been amongst the most outspoken advocates for Ukraine to receive more arms, including, of course, Leopard tanks.
In the last year, Russians intensified their propaganda in Latvia, using both old messages and newer ones. From time to time, Russian state media are publishing videos or press materials discussing ways to invade and occupy the Baltic states. Russia justifies it not only because the Baltics are members of NATO or the Russian-speaking community is oppressed by the Latvian government, but also because Russia has historical and thus legal rights to the Baltic territory. Sounds quite familiar, right? Thus, all Russia-based TV channels are now banned on the territory of Latvia, with country's media regulator explaining that channels registered in a country threatening the territorial integrity and independence of another country should not be operational in Latvia. Evija Djatkovica, Deputy Director of the Center of Geopolitical Studies in Riga, will tell us more about other transformations in Latvian society that happened last year due to Russian aggression in Ukraine.
And today I will gladly but briefly tell you about what kind of transformations Latvian state and the society underwent during this 1 year of Russia's second invasion of Ukraine, and also what kind of measures Latvian state took in order to respond to the war and in order to help Ukraine. So let me start with the second part and then I will proceed to the first one. So when it comes to Latvian assistance to Ukraine, it can be divided in two parts, in humanitarian part and also in military aid part. The first one, humanitarian aid part, is again divided in state response and spontaneous civic activities. When it comes to the first, it is very important to stress that governmental policy was straightforward. The country with less than 2 million population accommodated around 39,000 of Ukrainian refugees. And according to budgetary estimates of 2023, Latvia is ready to welcome around 40,000 more people if necessary. And when it comes to civic activity, it has been widespread and it fluctuated from very practical assistance measures, such as, for instance, delivering cars, voluntary cars from Latvia to Ukraine that started as just one-time activity, but now has converted into car delivery community called Twitter Convoy, and to parcel deliveries right from the very beginning of the war with food, clothes, hygiene supplies to the front line, but also to the general population of Ukraine, and then to more symbolic activities such as protest rallies by the Russian Federation Embassy here in Riga, and crowdfunding and fundraising activities such as concerts and others. That's one part. The other part is military support that Latvia has been providing. And according to Kiel Institute, Latvia is currently number 2 country according to the share of GDP that supports Ukraine. And in 2022, estimate shows that around 1% of Latvian GDP went for supporting Ukraine. When it comes to the type of military assistance that is included in this 1%, then we speak first of all of weapon deliveries. And first weapon deliveries actually took place a couple of days in advance of war. Latvia was the country that delivered Stinger anti-aircraft missiles just a few days before Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Later, Latvia delivered all of its helicopters to Ukraine, howitzers, ammunition, and also clothes and food for Ukrainian military personnel. Now, I'd like to proceed with a part to illustrate the transformations in Latvia itself. So first of all, we have to talk about boosting and enhancing Latvian defense. And here, the first thing is military spending. Latvia has been increasing military spending since 2014, Russia's first invasion of Ukraine, and it has been gradually increasing the numbers. In 2022, the military spending reached 2.2% of GDP, and it is expected to reach 3% by 2027. Another important angle is reintroduction of military conscription already from this year. That will last around 11 months. Until recently, Latvia remained the only country in the Nordic Baltic region without renewed or introduced military conscription. Last but not least, in military boosting sector is NATO presence enhancement in Latvia, but across other countries of the region too, from the level of battalion to brigade. So we're speaking about enhanced forward presence. And then I have to speak also about societal transformations. And in this sense, we could talk about decommunization, or even to some extent decolonization that gained the momentum in the shadow of war. So Latvia tore down all of its Soviet monuments, and the influence of Russian language in Latvian daily life rapidly declined. And some other activities also took place, like renaming streets that were titled according to Soviet-era people or events, and many more have taken place. So that's in short. Thank you.
Humanitarian aid comes not only in forms of big governmental packages. Ukrainians in Latvia, with kind-hearted Latvians, contribute to donating money, goods, and vehicles to bring Ukrainian victory closer. Valeriy Oleniychuk is a co-founder of the Ukrainian-Latvian Friendship Society and organizer of the Fire of Victory campaign in Jurmala. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, they have sent a lot of help to Ukraine, and I let Valeriy tell you about it himself.
Перший наш проєкт – це «Перемога мобіль». Ми вже відправили більш 117 джипів, автобусів для евакуації людей, перевозка наших військових. Ну, а це в основному це пікапи, які йдуть на фронт нашим військовим, прямо вот напередок. Вот, с Дмитром Комаровым мы сделали вот большой проект, 22 пикапа. Вот, может, вы чули такое. Мы прям с Юрмалы відправляли большую колонну машин, автівок. Ну, а зараз у нас вже ще є біженці, які перебувають у Латвії. Робимо окопні свічки. Уже ми зробили окопні свічки, ну, десь 65 тысяч штук уже окопных свечок под нашим брендом «Огонь перемоги», которые також отправляются в самые горячие точки. Сейчас мы дроны, проект у нас дроны с тепловизорами, тоже уже в Бахмуте наши дроны. Ну, будем, у нас целая армия волонтеров в Юрмалі, які от трудяться як бойові комари. Сделали ще нову акцію, як окопні свічки. Це наші друзі. Перше, це Рижська українська середня школа підтягнулась к нам. Начали мы вот с старшеклассниками их робити. Потом уже подтянулись наши беженцы, которые в Юрмале. Ну и уже вот с разных самоуправлений Юрмалы приезжают нам вот наши украинцы, наши латыши. В 2019 році ми з братом зробили товариство «Українсько-Латвійська дружба», щоб дружити наших діточок через спорт, через культуру, через їжу. Ну а зараз такий час, що ми, вот наша дружба укрепляется через окопные свечки.
You've been watching the special project by Ukraine Media Center and Euro-Atlantic course dedicated to the Russian-Ukrainian war, Ukraine in Flames. In the description under this video, you can find information on how you can help Ukraine fight Russian aggression. If you find our work useful, please like and share this video. Slava Ukraini!